Hello there. I am Dr. Temitope Alimi, and this is the Our Living Podcast, a show where we learn life lessons from the scriptures, from applying them to marriage, to business, to raising children, having relationships, and everything between. You would learn on this podcast what it means to live a transformed life of wonder. So, welcome aboard.
Now, on the last clip, which we posted last week, I was talking about the fact that the enemy was threatened by Israel's, growth and strength, and that was why they began to attack them. Okay, so we're going to pick it up from there, and it's the fact that the first point I want to make out in this particular clip today is that the enemy's attack on you, right, is triggered by fear. Let that settle. The enemy is afraid of you. The enemy is afraid of you. Because here you are crying and wailing, oh, woe is me. The enemy is attacking me. The enemy is doing this. The enemy is doing that, right? You are distressed because of the onslaught of the enemy, but you've not paused to think that thieves don't attack a house that there's nothing in it. Then there must be something that is making the enemy attack me, right? You've not paused to think that, wait, why is the enemy attacking me? Because if truly you are nothing like you think of yourself, why would the enemy attack you? He has limited resources. So why would he attack you? Right? You are here wailing about the onslaught of the enemy, yet you do not realize that the reason why he is attacking you is because he's afraid of you. The enemy is afraid of you. And but he doesn't make it look like he's acting out of fear, right? And so because he's proactive and he does not want and will not wait to see what you will do to him, right? He doesn't want to wait and see what he fears to happen. So what does he do? He goes on the offensive. He attacks you first before you attack him, right? He attacks you first before you attack him. So if there's anything I want you to remember, is to remember that the enemy fears what he attacks. The enemy attacks what he fears. The enemy attacks what he fears. How do I know this? Exodus chapter 1, verse 9. And so this is the Pharaoh talking, and he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Then verse 10 says, come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. So the reason why the enemy was attacking the children of Israel was because he was afraid that they were going to join forces with their enemies and leave the land. So you see what I'm saying? Satan is truly afraid of you. And that's why he sends his goons against you. So once you know that, you need to change your approach. Because how can you be afraid of somebody who is afraid of you? You need to think about it. It doesn't make sense, right? Now, next point. So, because he was afraid of them, he launched an attack on them on the basis of that fear. He launched an attack on them on the basis of something he thinks may happen. Right? This thing had not happened and it was not likely to happen. Yet the enemy was acting upon it as though it was certain it was going to happen. Let me read that verse 10 again. Exodus 1 verse 10. It says, come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also our enemies and fight against us. So gets them up out of the land. So the Pharaoh decided to attack the children of Israel on the basis of something he thinks the children of Israel might do, which they had not done, and which ended up not even happening. Right? He was attacking them. He made a decision and acted on that decision on the basis of a possible future event, which means that the enemy has faith in you, but you don't have faith in yourself, and you don't have faith in God. Here is the enemy making a decision on something he thinks you will do and acting on that decision, and you that he is thinking that you will do that thing, you are not even thinking about it at all. You feel like you cannot do it. The enemy has faith in you. That literally just occurred to me. Okay? So the enemy is thinking about the future and is making decisions and taking actions based on what he thinks will happen in the future. The question is, why aren't you doing the same? Why are you acting in fear instead of faith? He thinks you're going to attack him, and so he decides to attack you first. But here you are not even thinking of your future. You are not taking steps about your future at all. Because the all elaborate onslaught on the children of Israel for several years was for something they feared would happen, right? Which never even happened at all. Yet the children of Egypt did not stop afflicting them because of that. Okay? So this shows you how much of a threat you are to the enemy, right? And the lengths he will go to, right, to prevent you from doing him harm. So if he's this afraid of you and launches this enormous attack on you, right? If he fears you this much, why are you thinking less of yourself? Why do you think of yourself as being small and inconsequential? It doesn't tally. And so we need to begin to see ourselves the way God sees us, because guess what? The enemy sees you like that. And it's time we also woke up and arose and begun to see ourselves in that light. I hope this made sense and it will cause you to pause and think, and you will make adjustments as needed. So we're going to continue our discussion of that Acts chapter 7 and Exodus chapter 1. Right now, we're actually looking at the initial account in Exodus, and we're examining every verse to see what we can draw out and how that can help us to understand when our appointed time is near, because that's what all of this is about. We are trying to learn the things that happens when the appointed time for the fulfillment of a prophecy that God has given is near. Okay, so the first point I'm going to make into this clip, right, is the fact that affliction did not stop the children of Israel. In spite of affliction, they still continued to multiply, right? Scripture says in that Exodus 1 verse 12, it says, but the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. The more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. Which means that no matter the affliction, no matter the attacks that the enemy brings to you, you will still do well. You will still succeed. You will continue to multiply and grow. Remember, the attack was because of their growth and multiplication, and it was against their growth and multiplication. Yet, what they were attacking, what they were trying to stop from happening, did not stop happening. In fact, the more they afflicted them, the more they grew. Right? And this is a typical case of what the enemy meant for evil, God turned it for good. Because look at it. They were attacking them to stop their growth and multiplication. Yet, what they were doing to stop their growth and multiplication was, in fact, sponsoring their growth and multiplication. Right? The purpose of the affliction was to reduce their numbers. But instead of reducing the numbers, it was the opposite effect. Their numbers increased. In fact, their numbers multiplied. It wasn't just an increase, right? And so what this tells us is that when the time of the fulfillment, right, of God's promises is around the corner, not only will God cause you to grow and multiply by himself, right, but even what the enemy does to counteract what God is doing in your life will still work towards fulfilling, bringing about what God has ordained, right? What it does to limit your growth and multiplication will actually have the opposite effect. It will actually increase and accelerate your growth and multiplication. Isn't that just beautiful? How God knows how to turn things that were supposed to work against us in our favor. Okay, so that's the first point I want to bring out in today's clip. Second point, okay, still from that Exodus 1, it's the fact that God will frustrate your enemies, right? Because they will see that their attacks on your life, they're not working. Because that was what God did for them. Still, I think this is a part of verse 12, the latter part of verse 12. It says, and they were grieved. This is the children of Egypt. And they were grieved because of the children of Israel. They were grieved because the children of Israel, because the more they afflicted them, the more they grew. And so they were grieved because of the children of Israel, which is interesting because they were the ones afflicting and attacking the children of Israel, yet they were the ones being grieved. Right? Why were they grieving? Because they could see that the things that they were doing against the children of Israel were not working. Right? And so this actually happened because God frustrates the tokens of liars. And it drives diviners mad. He disappoints their devices so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. So enemies will arise. That is normal. That's not a big deal. But God always fights for his own. Right? So even though they are launching their attacks, they are also still the ones who will be frustrated because they will see that all that they are doing against you, all the attacks are launching against you, rather than diminishing you, it's actually promoting you, right? And that will bring their frustration. So rest assured, don't even fret, don't stress yourself. Let the enemy and all his goons and his agents, let them be doing whatever they are doing. Whatever they do, God is sure to frustrate their plans, right? He's going to make sure that it doesn't happen as they want it to happen, because that is what God does. Now, on the last clip, we talked about, the enemies being frustrated by all that is the fact that all that they are doing against you is not working, right? Now, you would think that because they are frustrated that they will stop. Now, they are not going to stop. In fact, their frustrations will lead to more attacks. Because they are frustrated that this first thing that we tried to do did not work, it will make them decide to attack you even more. And this time around, they will try to attack you mostly through hardship. So when you see battles and attacks multiply in your life, know that the enemy is frustrated. He must have been trying some things and they are not working. And that's why he's increasing his attacks, right? Because when they become frustrated, they do more through hardship, hoping that they will crush your spirit through that. We see this in verse 13 of that Exodus chapter 1. It says, and the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, and in all manner of service in the field. all their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor. So the enemy began to bring hardship into their lives because he saw that all that he was doing to minimize their numbers did not work. So one of the things that the Lord pointed out to me here is that hardship is often not the first line of offense of the enemy, right? It's often not the first line of offense. However, the goal of hardship is to attack your numbers, to attack your growth and your multiplication. Okay, and how does it do this? So remember, the Bible tells us that they overworked them. They made their lives bitter with hard bondage, and all the service wherein they made them serve was with rigor. Okay, so what the enemy was trying to do was to overwork them and treat them so badly, right? So, and remember, it was mostly the men that were busy, building for the Egyptians. So what he was trying to do was to overwork them and make them so exhausted, right? I mean, this is how it came to me. Make them so exhausted that by the time they got home, being with their wives and being intimate with their wives was going to be the last thing. I mean, imagine you being at work, you've been at work since 4 a.m. in the morning, and you don't get back home until like 11 p.m. or 12 p.m. 12 a.m. You have just 3 hours to sleep before you have to go to work again. Being intimate with your wife is not going to be the next thing on your mind, right? And so the tactic of the enemy was to overwork the men so much so that they would be so exhausted that they would not want to be with their wives. And so what he was hoping to do is, so by time, I mean, this is going to be happening across multiple homes, right? So they are so tired that they would not be able to procreate. And remember that God was blessing them. So most likely every time they met with their wives, the wives got pregnant, right? So the enemy was planning to tire them out so much that they would not be able to be with their wives, and hence that will hinder their procreation and thereby hindering their numbers, right? Another thing he was trying to do with the hardship is because, of course, when people are overworked, they fall sick, right? And of course, if somebody is sick, they're not going to be able to be with their spouse. Okay, so all the enemy was trying to do was to reduce, because remember, the two threats of the enemy were their numbers and their strength, right? So the enemy was trying to attack both their numbers and strength by overworking them. Okay, so this is the goal of hardship. It brings hardship to reduce one's number and to tamper with one's strength. But we know better. We're not going to allow it. No matter the onslaught of the enemy, we're not going to allow him achieve his goal. Yeah? Now, another point I want to bring out here, this one I want to bring out is not the next point per se from the scripture, but because the next point is one that the Lord elaborated for me so much. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that in a separate clip on its own. So I brought this one that I'm going to talk about before it, right? And so what he then do, because so the story after the enemy tried to attack them through hardship and it did not work, the next thing was that he spoke to the midwives who attended to the women when they were giving birth and told them to, kill their male children. Okay. But these women did not do what the king asked them to do, right? And so the point I want to bring out here is that God will raise destiny helpers for you. God will raise destiny helpers for you. Even when you can't help yourself, God will raise helpers for you. Because in verses 17 and 18 of that Exodus 1, but the midwives feared God and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive. And the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said unto them, why have you done this thing and have saved the men children alive? Okay? By the way, do you know that the women of Israel did not know that the midwives had been commanded to kill their children? Because, of course, if they knew, they wouldn't call the midwives. But the midwives were speaking for them even when they were not aware of what was going on. That is what God does when He raises destiny helpers for you. People who will speak up for you where you are not present. People who will fight for you when you don't even know that there's a battle going on, right? And as you can imagine, when a woman is in labor, she's helpless. There's nothing she can do of herself. So if the midwives had decided that they were going to kill the children, they would have done it easily. They would have done it easily because the women were helpless. Yet God raised destiny helpers for them through the midwives. And so what this tells you is that even when you can't help yourself, right? Even when you are in places or you are not even there, when your name comes up in places, right? God will raise people to speak up for you. It's part of what happens when your appointed time has come. When the appointed time for the fulfillment of God's promise over your life comes, God will always position people who will act favorably on your behalf and who will speak up for you. That is what God does when the time for the fulfillment of a promise He has given us comes. Okay? So rest assured, God is working for you. He's raising people to speak up for you where you are not even aware of. And He's going to ensure that the plans of the enemy concerning your life don't come to pass. Okay? Share this with people you know this will be of benefit to. Okay? And click the follow button for more of teachings like this. Make sure you comment as well. I'll see you on the next clip.